Hello and welcome to this week's webinar. Today we're going to be talking about Roth Conversions 101. So what is a Roth conversion? How do you execute a Roth conversion? And really, where does it make sense? When to start thinking about this and how to incorporate it into your financial plan? So for today, it's going to be a little bit different than some of the other past webinars where I go through a presentation. We're going to be a little bit more hands-on and dive into the financial planning software that I use with clients. I have a test scenario that I put together for today. And so we'll go through that and show you a real life example. And hopefully that'll make it a little bit easier to understand what this is going to look like and how you can potentially implement this into your financial plan. So as we dive into today's presentation, I want to start by talking about what the difference is between pre-tax and Roth accounts, right? We need to understand how retirement accounts work to understand what a Roth conversion is and how we factor that into the plan. So let me start by sharing my screen here and just like a little illustration that I pulled up online talking about the difference between pre-tax and Roth accounts. So really the main difference here is just where are you going to be paying your taxes? Are you going to be paying your taxes on the front end and get your income taxes out of the way today? Or are you going to try and defer those taxes and you don't want to deal with it right now? You want to get some tax benefits today and you're going to push it out for retirement later on. So if we want to defer the taxes, then we're going to go into traditional accounts or pre-tax accounts. And that can be a pre-tax IRA, solo 401k, SEP IRA, right? It doesn't matter what the type of account is. It's just the pre-tax or traditional nature of the account. And then the opposite is going to be Roth accounts, which is where you pay your taxes right now, you get it out of the way, and then you never pay tax on that money again, and it gets to be completely tax-free. So anything, again, here that has Roth in front of it is all the same tax status. It doesn't matter if it's Roth IRA, Roth solo 401k, Roth SEP IRA, right? Anything Roth means that you've paid the taxes now and you're done with it. So essentially what a Roth conversion is that you're taking money from the pre-tax version on the left and you're moving it into the Roth version on the right. So when you do this, whatever amount you move from left to that year is going to count as income. So if you do a $50,000 Roth conversion, that's going to be $50,000 of extra income on your tax return, and you're going to have to pay the taxes. Once the money's in the Roth account, then it now gets to grow tax-free and get those Roth benefits. So for this reason, rule number one with Roth conversions is most of the time we do not want to do it while you're working and still bringing in income, because you could be making $200,000 and then you do $100,000 Roth conversion and now you're up to $300,000 of income this year and you are pushing yourself into the highest tax brackets. So the best time to do a Roth conversion is when your income is low. Sometimes there's opportunities to do this when you have like an injury and you're not working for 6 months. So that specific year of court reporting is going to be lower income than other years. That could be a good opportunity to take advantage and do a Roth conversion. The other thing you need to think about with a Roth conversion is when you move the money from one to the other and you create those taxes that you have to pay, if you're under 60 years old, you cannot use these accounts to pay the tax bill. So in my example, you move $100,000 into Roth and you're going to owe, say, 30% taxes on that. That's $30,000. You can't take the $30,000 from the Roth because you're not 60. You're going to have a 10% penalty to access that money. So now you're going to be looking at, what is that, $3,000? No, it'd be $3,000 to take the money out of the account, and then you would have the $30,000 tax bill. So now we're at $33,000 to get this money out of the plan. So we really don't want to do that. So instead, when you're over 60, you now have access to these accounts. So you could do a $100,000 Roth conversion, take the 30 grand out to pay for the taxes, and that's no problem. So now we understand what a Roth conversion is and how it works. So let me show you when we would implement this and how you would implement it in your plan. So what I have pulled up here is the tax brackets, and these are the tax brackets, the federal income taxes for 2025. And the way that you would do a Roth conversion looking at these taxes is you want to fill up the bucket that you're currently in if you're in a low environment. And really what I look at for me and for my clients is this big jump, 24 to 32% for when we want to look at switching and making adjustments, or also this smaller one from 12 to 22%, right? Because these are the big jumps. I'm not really too worried about going from 22% to 24%, but I don't want my client going from 24% all the way up to 32 or from 12 all the way up to 22. And so let me give you an example here. Let's say that you're having a lower income year this year and your taxes are a little bit lower than normal, and you're only going to make $30,000 of income for this year. So you make $30,000 of income, and that's going to put you in this 12% bracket is where you top out. So you top out that you're at 30,000 and you're just got into this $12,000 bucket here. You can go all the way up to $97,000, and I'm looking just at a married filing jointly here. You can go up to 97,000 without increasing your top bracket to 22%. So what you could do is you try and fill this bucket up. So you made $30,000 this year in my example because you had a slow year, and then you do say a $60,000 Roth conversion. So you increased your income by 60,000. So now you went from 30 to 90. But by doing that, you stayed out of the 22% tax bracket. So you got to move $60,000 over from pre-tax to Roth and do it at only a 12% tax rate. Where later on in life, you could need a lot more money for your retirement. You never are going to have a year where you're only bringing in 30,000. Even just Social Security could be more than that. And you're going to end up always being stuck in these higher tax brackets. So anytime that we can take advantage when you're in a lower tax bracket, we want to try and fill these buckets up. So lastly here, I want to show you an example of what this can look like. This is my financial planning software that I use with clients. I have a test dummy and code dummy here as a married couple, and they're 60 years old. They're getting ready for retirement at age 65. And what we're looking at here is we're looking at what their effective tax rate's going to be. So they're going to start an effective tax rate right now. They're making $150,000. So they're in the upper 20s for total tax bracket percentage. And then once they go to retire, their taxes are going to go down. But then you'll notice here that over time, their taxes start going up. And part of the reason they start going up is if you've heard of required minimum distributions, which is when the government starts forcing you to take money out of your pre-tax accounts, even when you don't want to. So what happens is you have to take a certain amount of money out of these pre-tax accounts and pay the taxes on it. And that could be forcing you into higher tax brackets that you don't want to be in. So let me pull up a different view of what this looks like. This calibration here. This is very similar to what I just showed you, except this is only looking at your ordinary federal income tax brackets. So you can see if I highlight these, it's the same taxes that we talked about, right? It's the 10%, then it goes to 12, then 22, then 24, and then eventually even 32 and 37. And so as you can see on the federal side, if you're making 150,000 as a married couple, you're going to stay just under this 12% mark. And then in retirement, you're going to drop down a little bit because you don't need as much money. But then you're going to run into those required minimum distributions. And you can see that this keeps going up and up. And toward these later years in life, you're almost all the way up to the 22% tax bracket, right? So what we can do here is in these middle years from 65 to 75, you can see where your income is a bit lower. We want to fill the bracket. So fill that bucket up. So I'm going to fill this up all the way to the green line. So you're going to fill the bracket that you're currently in, which is 10%, all the way up to that upper benchmark. So the way I can do that in this system is I go right here and I'm going to up this to 12% and then refresh this. And now you can see the difference. So the green here, when you see just that little sliver of green right above in this middle part, that's the Roth conversions that you're doing. So your new income is going to be right at the upper limit where you're just under 12%. You never go over 12. So you got to move all that money to Roth at 10%. And then it's a little bit hard to see, but this light shading up here versus the dark shading down here, that's the difference in your income later on. So you can see that you actually never got to the 12% bracket or above because in those early years, you moved your money to Roth. Now, the difference between this is at the end of this strategy, at the end of their lifetime, they're going to have saved $365,000. So they're going to have $365,000 more dollars at the end of their retirement plan by doing these Roth conversions early on. So we want to be strategic about this and know when to do it. Really, the prime time to do it is if you retire and you haven't collected Social Security yet, then you're going to have really low income for a few years, and that could be an opportunity. Or when you just retire, if you have some cash left over and you're going to spend that cash down in your first year of retirement before you start taking from all those retirement accounts that you built up, then that could be a year where you have really low income because those savings and cash accounts don't count as income to you. So there's different scenarios here where it could be really good years to do major Roth conversions and get some of those tax benefits and move this money over. The last reason I'll mention here why Roth conversions are important is going to be estate planning. When you pass away and you leave money to your beneficiaries, if you leave the money in pre-tax accounts, and I'm talking not a spouse, but after you and your spouse pass away, and then it would be going to like kids, then when the kids inherit the money, they will have 10 years to liquidate the account. And if it's all pre-tax, anything that they liquidate is going to count as income for them. So you could give your kid $500,000 pre-tax retirement account, and they're going to have to liquidate that every year. They're probably just going to spread it out evenly. So that's an extra 50 grand that's going to be on their income every single year that they're going to have to pay income taxes on. And that's really going to take away from a lot of that money. If you move it to Roth, then once it's in the Roth account, when they inherit the money, they still only have 10 years to take the money out. But when they go to take the money out, you already paid the taxes. There's no income taxes on that money. So it's not going to impact them from a tax standpoint. So usually people just keep it the entire 10 years and let it grow as long as possible. And then they'll take all the money out at 10 years, completely tax-free. So it's also very helpful when you're looking at estate planning and how you're setting up your legacy planning for your kids in the next generation. If you can save them on taxes and give them a little bit better tax environment for an inheritance, it's always helpful as well. So I know we covered a lot today and in different ways that this can help. So I'm sure there's going to be some questions on this one. If you do have any questions, as always, feel free to leave a comment and I'll get that question answered for you. If you want help discussing your individual situation and how we can look at Roth conversions for you, feel free to reach out. You can send me a private message or also use the link I have here posted as well to set up an intro meeting to talk further. Other than that, hope you all have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you all next time.